Welcome back to Fireside Giants. Don't mind the pep in my voice, this is just the intro. We're actually super depressed inside after the Week 7 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. If you didn't watch, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast because you really should just go and never watch football again. It was the most disheartening, soul-crushing, heart-burning, dagger-wrenching in the gut game I've ever watched. Aside from Deshaun Jackson and Matt Dodge, you know the rest. I'm at a loss for words, to be quite frank with you. We have a lot to talk about, and man, I still am not over this loss. This is going to haunt me for a couple days. Tequila time started early. Thank goodness it's Friday. That's the only saving grace of this game being on Thursday night, that Friday was the next day. Anthony, my man, how are you doing today?
I'm depressed. I'm feeling a lot of pain and sadness and anger and frustration. I can't believe, man, that Evan Ingram dropped a pass that led to an interception, then dropped a pass that blew the game. Like, the guy is just so bad. He blew it twice in one game. And, yeah, I'm just sad.
We're going to talk about Evan Ingram a lot this episode because I don't know what else to talk about. He single-handedly lost that game for the Giants. Now, I will give credit, well, bad credit, really, blame more or less, to Madre Harper and Ryan Lewis, both of whom picked up late game penalties, and Ryan Lewis was absolutely tortured.
Who even is Madre Harper?
I don't know. I don't know why he was in. That was, by the way, that's what happens when you don't have Adrian Colbert in there. You have to put Madre Harper in there, and you have your undrafted free agent from last year just completely disregarding that the Giants are leading this game, getting in the face of Ward after a touchdown.
I'll say on that play, though, that should have been a taunting by Ward because he hit him on top of his head, and then Madre Harper got up and was pissed about it.
It's always the reaction.
I probably would be too.
We know that. It's always the reaction that gets called. Either way, Ryan Lewis was awful.
I thought he played all right, and then it just got worse and worse. I don't know. It's like
maybe he started okay, but he got okay. There was two plays specifically. Obviously, the one at the end to Fulham where he was just absolutely torched on the right side of the field. That was the one that set the Eagles up in scoring position. They ended up getting scoring the touchdown from Boston Scott. That man, Boston Scott, by the way. Now the other one that is notable, Jabril Peppers gets matched up on a wide receiver. I think it was Fulham again on the right boundary, and Ryan Lewis. Peppers points to where Ryan Lewis should be. And he's like, oh, crap, Ryan Lewis is not there. He's running the opposite direction. And then Jabril Peppers just turns on the afterburners and tries to catch up to his man, who's running past him in coverage. Lack of communication there. Lewis just seemed to be out of position. I'm looking at PFF grades right now. You're gonna like literally cry when you hear these. Last week against Washington, he had a 71.7 coverage grade. Take a guess what it was yesterday against the Eagles.
Is it below a 60?
Just take a guess. Just take a guess. Well, I'll guess.
I'll go 60, 61, 62.
29.
Okay.
29, Ryan Lewis.
I give 21.7
tackling grade. 21.7 tackling grade. He was abysmal. 49 coverage snaps he had. And he had less than a 30 coverage grade. That was worse than his. If you look at his worst game before that, it's still about 15 points less. And that was against Dallas. And he got torched by CeeDee Lamb all game. We have a real problem. I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt going into this game that he could establish himself at the CB2 position. But now, man, I am not convinced. Not convinced that Ryan Lewis is the answer there. It was a disheartening performance. If he even has a decent game, the Giants win that game, by the way. I mean, obviously, there's a bunch of different factors there, but if he doesn't give up that last big play to Fulham, I don't think the Eagles make it down the field that quickly. Maybe the Giants have a little bit more time on the clock, and I don't think Jabril Peppers didn't have that miscommunication. That was only 2 plays out of the number of plays that he actually allowed. I'll pull up the actual stats against him right now. Ryan Lewis yesterday against Philly. Let's see. He allowed. I don't think I can find it. Either way,
right.
He was torched all game long. It was
he
just
didn't
really
play well.
A disaster. He didn't play well, and he played 91% of snaps too, so that's a little disheartening.
He was the starting cornerback, and I don't know, man.
Starting cornerback.
They got to find somebody at that position, but you're not in position to trade for somebody or sign another player because of cap space and because of the fact that we should not be buying at the deadline, we should be selling. So I guess we're just going to have to get used to seeing Ryan Lewis rotate in at cornerback too with Ballantyne and Yadam and other scrubs all season long. And it's going to suck, but it is what it is, man. Like, what else could we possibly do? There is no one else to put there. Like, as bad as Ryan Lewis might be, he is the best that we have. So we're just going to have to live with that. That play that you're talking about, to Fulgham on the sideline, I mean, that was just Ryan Lewis. That was just,
They're playing
honestly,
cover 3.
that was stupid. It was stupid. He kept his eyes in the backfield for what reason? Like, he was trying to see if they were going to run it. Just play your coverage and go. It was just stupid. And
they were playing cover 3, and he didn't drop back into coverage far enough. It was a simple bad play by Ryan Lewis.
He was busy looking into the backfield to see if there was a run, so he would bail from his zone and try and make a play. But you have to know the situation. They're throwing the ball. You know, like, they're behind. They're trying to get down and score a touchdown. They're throwing the ball. Drop back into your coverage and get ready.
Right. He gave up 4 catches. I found the stats. 4 catches, 116 yards, and a long of 59, which is the one at the end. He had 1 penalty. That's just an awful game.
Now, that throw by Wentz, though, that was some throw. And I think Wentz is the most overrated quarterback in the league, and I don't think he's very good. But that throw on the sideline, that was a rainbow. That was a bomb. It was a perfect throw.
He has some good throws, man. He has a good arm. His offensive line was quite bad, and considering our pass rush,
but he's also... I hate Philly, so I gotta shit on Wentz a little bit, dude. He is not that good. Like, he is so overrated. He holds onto the ball way too long. He thinks he's extending the play. He tries to extend the play and run around and do all these circles in the backfield, and then he throws a pick. Like, he does that all the time, and people look at it, and then they see him extend the play and make a play, and they're like, holy cow, that's an amazing play. Carson Wentz is one of, like, 4 quarterbacks in the league that can do that. And it's like, okay, but he's only one of 4 quarterbacks in the league willing to do that and throw interceptions 60% of the time that he does that.
Yeah.
He's a bum, and I hate him, and I hate Philly, and I hate Philly, and I hate Philly. And I'm really angry because I just wanted to beat Philly for once. I hate them, dude.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we haven't beat them at home since 2013. Doug Peterson has never lost a Thursday night game. We almost ruined that streak. We were up by 10 points in the fourth quarter, and I think now is a proper time to talk about our favorite player of the day, Evan Ingram. Evan needs to go back to Ole Miss Ingram. I don't even know where to start with this guy. If you've listened to our podcast the past couple of weeks, you've heard Anthony and I say over and over and over again, the guy has feet for hands, stone bricks for hands. You might as well give him oven mitts if you wanted him to catch better. The guy has wearing NFL gloves. These things basically have super glue to them, and he's like grasping at air. I don't understand.
You know what I noticed on that play, though? On that big drop? His gloves weren't strapped. He was just wearing them loosely. Like, you strap them on and you Velcro them. They were unvelcroed. Like, he wasn't ready for the play. His gloves weren't actually on.
It could just be a superstitious thing for him. It could just be like a comfort thing for him. Either way, when you have gloves like that, if you've ever worn receiver gloves, I have before, it's like hard to drop balls that are laid in your bread basket. Like Daniel Jones gave him the golden goose egg. Like the stork dropped off the egg right into this guy's freaking hands. And he dropped it. Now, what does that tell us about Evan Ingram? 1, he doesn't come up clutch in big plays, right? 2, he drops easy passes because that is the easiest pass. 3, we can't even send him and extend the field with him because we cannot trust him in the receiving game. 4, I'll just add some more here because I'm on a streak. 4, Evan Ingram literally's only purpose is to be a receiving tight end, and he can't do that, right? Not only did he drop that play that would have ended the game, essentially, would have gave the Giants a first down and given them the opportunity to milk the clock, but he also was the reason for Daniel Jones' only interception of the game. That 3-yard pass to him that literally like bounced off his hand right into the hands of Clavon LeBlanc. What is his name? Cravon LeBlanc.
Mm-hmm.
He's accounted for, I think, 4 interceptions that Daniel Jones has thrown this year out of the 7 he has thrown, and a fumble. And it comes down to the ball is bouncing off his hands, firstly. Secondly, he's falling at the most integral part of his routes. He slips or stumbles or the turf monster gets him. You know, like
Well, Turf
it
Monster
doesn't.
definitely existed last night. It was out
Oh,
there.
it did.
Daniel Jones can
Oh, it
attest to
did.
that.
Yeah. Daniel Jones knows, and that might have been one of the funniest things I have seen in quite some time. I was.
That was pretty
It's funny
funny.
because when that read option, he takes it, and I'm like, oh, he's probably gonna pick up 15 yards, and then I'm like, there's nobody back there. He's running straight to the end zone, right? And just to throw it in there, 21.23 miles per hour, faster than any Lamar Jackson's run in the history of his career. It's the fastest quarterback run since 2018, and it just barely was slower than Tyreek Hill's fastest run. Vanilla Vic, baby. Vanilla
Dude,
Vic.
honestly, man, Daniel Jones is a freaking athlete.
He
had
fly,
a play.
Man.
I mean, when you go back and you watch his plays at Duke, he had like a 60-yard rushing touchdown where he just flew on a read option just like
He's
that
an athlete.
to the right, and he flew 60 yards or 55 yards or something. And like the guy is fast, legitimately fast, and he is a super a really good athlete. And the Giants need to make this more of a focal point in the offense. He needs more designed quarterback runs. Like we need to really expand the offense with Daniel Jones here.
Absolutely.
You know, like you watch the Cardinals or you watch the Ravens are the prime example, right? Because they have multiple, probably like 10 rushing attempts with Lamar Jackson every game at least. You know, like he is one of their running backs. I'm not saying the Giants necessarily need to go that far with it, but they should at least take some things from that playbook and learn some things and start getting Daniel Jones out in space because he's even made guys miss. He's juked guys. He's spun off guys. He's ran through some guys here and there. Like, you know, you want to protect his body, so we got to teach him to slide better, right? The Giants got to make sure that he slides because he doesn't really slide very often. But at the same time, let's get him out in space more and let's see him run more because the dude is our best runner. He is our fastest runner. He's probably broken more tackles than anybody on this team, and he leads us in rushing right now. And he had 92 rushing yards last night. He is a dual threat quarterback. Right, he's a dual threat quarterback, and it's time that the Giants actually start using him that way. Like, I understand his strength is to stand in the pocket and go from read to read and make the throws, right? But just because that's his best strength doesn't mean he's not strong in other places. If he's strong in the pocket and he's strong outside of the pocket, it's time to start having him do everything. I said that a couple weeks ago on this podcast. This offense, I'm fine with not signing Devontae Freeman or any running back because now I just want to see everything go on Daniel Jones because I think that we should just fully test him, and have him do everything for this offense. And I think now it's just being proven that he can do those things. He can be the running game. He can be the passing game. He can carry this offense. He has been carrying this offense all season long. Like, no mistake about it. When Saquon was in, he wasn't carrying the offense. The rushing attack is getting better, but it's not carrying the offense. Daniel Jones has been carrying the offense. We've been living or dying by Daniel Jones' hand every single game. But most of the time, we see him actually do more good than bad this year. Last year, you could make the debate. A lot of those games, there was more bad than good. There's been one or two of those this year. But for the most part, it's been good and then mixed in with the bad. Not bad mixed in with good. So if that makes any sense. So I just think that now, over the long stretch of this season, we got, 8 more games left, whatever. I just want to see Daniel Jones run this offense. I just want to see all of it go through Daniel Jones. I want to see him run the ball. He's got to have at least one game this season where he rushes the ball 12 times, 10 to 12 times. Like, let's see him run the ball more. Let's see him throw the ball more. I just want the whole offense to revolve around Daniel Jones now. And I know that's hard because of our offensive line, but if we could scheme ways to do it, I just want to see Daniel Jones take off so that we know by the end of the season, so we know going into that offseason when a new manager comes in, new general manager comes in, he knows what he has in the quarterback, and he knows whether he wants to keep Daniel Jones or whether he wants to find a new guy. And so we got to know that by the end of the year, and the only way to do that, put all of the responsibility of this offense on Daniel Jones' shoulders and see what he can do with it.
Right. You know, if you've watched me on Twitter and social media, you know that I've been advocating for Daniel Jones when people have been calling for Trevor Lawrence. I've been very vocal about my support for Daniel Jones and what he is capable of doing. I think the Giants can win with him, and we saw that last night. He played like a winning quarterback. He played like an elite quarterback last night. And I'll go as far to say that because with Sterling Shepard in the lineup, the offense looked entirely different. I think he had 6 receptions for about 60 yards and a touchdown.
He is such a good route runner.
Oh my God. Not only is he a good route runner, he's injured, by the way, so he's not even at full strength. And he gives Daniel Jones that security blanket that he just didn't have with CJ Board and Damian Ratley, and even Evan Ingram and Darius Slayton too. You know, Darius Slayton is right now what I like to think of as a 1 or 2 tool player. He really is just their deep threat, and you have to have that on any given team. That is an essential part of an offense's success. Is like the Chiefs have Nicole Hardman. They run him deep. That is what he does. I think Darius Slayton has more skills than him, but I think his primary job is to run deep and catch those touchdown passes long. Golden Tate, great touchdown pass yesterday. I think maybe it'll increase his value. Maybe we can get a conditional 7th rounder out of him. I'm hoping to the good gods that is the case. But when it comes to Daniel Jones, I really do think that he is capable of being our quarterback and our franchise quarterback. Now, let me throw a few factors out there that are stunting his growth and hurting his progression, even though we've seen him develop the past few games exponentially in this scheme. One, the tackles have been atrocious. Like the worst duo of tackles since tackles since what's his name, Bobby Hart and Eric Flowers. Exactly. Even those guys, I'm like, man, I don't even know if they were as bad as Andrew Thomas and Cam Fleming right now, because they look like a complete mess. Now, what I will say is that Andrew Thomas has been decent in run blocking. His pass blocking, on the other hand, has gotten worse and worse and worse and worse every single week. Now, where do we go from there? That's my big question. Matt Parrott only had 6 snaps when I thought he would get at least a little bit more action against Philly. Now, I think now that we're 1-6, we've lost 2 divisional games. We're essentially out of the playoff race at this point because our team isn't capable of winning big games. I don't think that we can climb back from this. Yeah. We're going to be sellers, I think. And Joe Judge said, there's no guarantee we're going to trade anyone or sell. But obviously that's a negotiation tactic because they don't want to give away their hand. It's too early. I think that they will probably be sellers at the deadline. I think that they're going to try and recoup some lost draft capital that Dave Gettleman so happily gave away for Leonard Williams with a losing team already. Now, also, let me mention this, by the way. People have been mentioning Kevin Zeitler in a potential trade. This was reported by Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated. Now, he said that Golden Tate and Kevin Zeitler are both are both probably on the trading block, and teams have been interested in those 2 names specifically. I don't mind that. And I think Zeitler actually has more value than you might think. Because think about it like this. Zeitler's having his worst season to date so far. This is going to be his worst season. He's not as bad as his statistics and grades indicate this year. He's just playing with a terrible offensive line with 0 continuity under a new scheme. That is his issue. He is a very talented player. The Vikings just traded Yannick Ngakoue, a pass rusher that had 5 sacks through 6 weeks. Just traded Yannick Ngakoue for a 3rd-round pick and a 5th-round pick, right? If I'm not mistaken?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Same thing that we traded for Leonard Williams, 3rd and a 5th.
Exactly. Which is crazy. And he's on the franchise tag, by the way. So they're basically just gaining his rights. Now, with Kevin Zeitler, he's a little bit older. I understand that. I think that you might be able to get a 3rd-round pick for Kevin Zeitler, which, in my opinion, might be worth it at this point. The only reason I'm skeptical to do that is because you're really dooming Daniel Jones for the rest of the season. You have to put Cam Fleming at right guard at that point, and then Matt Parrott at right tackle. Like, you're really putting DJ in a bad spot. I personally, that's one of the reasons I don't like it. Also, trading away your best offensive line on a terrible offensive line is not ideal. You really want to keep the players that are going to be, consistent and really bring things together for the future. That's kind of how I feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, up until this week, I have been saying I don't want to see Kevin Zeitler get traded. I think that, the offensive line will fall apart. He is by far our best offensive lineman. He has been for the past 2 years, right? And I do think his trade value is probably still pretty high because I think a lot of teams around the league are going to value a Pro Bowl level offensive lineman who is consistent and you know what you're getting with him, and he is a veteran. I think him being a veteran is actually one of the selling points in this scenario. For one of those teams that it needs to make a push down the stretch, they need an offensive lineman. I think that's a selling point for him because you know that he could just step in and be good, and it's not contingent on this or that. It's just step in and at least be solid, So I think that's one of the selling points with Zeitler. And here's why I've kind of changed my mind, right? Because I was so against the Zeitler trade. I'm kind of for it now. And really, you just look at Zeitler's contract. You get rid of him, 0 dead cap. You just free $12 million in cap space, which is huge. That's a lot of money.
14.5 dead cap hit next year.
14.5. You next year, no dead cap. I thought no dead cap.
No, I'm saying his cap
salary
hit
cap
him.
Okay, salary cap hit. Yeah, right. Okay. So you free up all that cap space, and you get a solid draft pick in return. And then what happens is you just have this younger offensive lineman, Shane Lemieux, go out there and develop. You just develop him for the rest of the year. And yeah, you might be dooming Daniel Jones to a couple extra pressures and sacks per game here, but he's already, like, how much worse can it possibly get? You know what I mean? Like, it's bad as it
That's a
is.
reasonable point.
It's bad as it is. How much worse can it possibly get? So let's develop this young guy, see what we have, and then start planning for the future. I just think you look at this team, where, like, I know you need veterans at some point, but where does a veteran Kevin Zeitler really stand? Like, he can just think about Kevin Zeitler himself too. Don't you think he would want to go somewhere and like win something? Like, he's getting up there in age.
Right.
Why keep him trapped here in New York on this rebuilding crappy team that has no chance of making the playoffs? Really,
Browns the Giants, man. That's hell. That's hell of a.
It is. It's unfair for the guy. Honestly, I feel bad. Like, he should go somewhere that's contending, be a rental, be a 1-year rental or half a season rental for a competing team. Step in there, fix their offensive line, and that might be what they need to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, you look at all the teams around the league that need offensive linemen, even the ones that don't. Kevin Zeitler is so good, you could probably plug him in somewhere. He has the value, and that's my thing, though. The Giants don't have players like that. We don't have players with value, and we need some draft capital. He has value. I feel like it's almost malpractice not to extract that value from him, because he's really not like a long-term answer here. He's not your future of your offensive line. The players like Matt Peart, Shane Lemieux, Andrew Thomas, they might not be the future, but likely they are. Let's find out for sure, though. So let's get all these young guys in there and let's figure it out. It's the same thing with Daniel Jones. Let's make sure that he's the future before we head into next offseason. Let's make sure Shane Lemieux is or isn't the future before we head into next offseason, because I don't think Kevin Zeitler is a long-term answer anymore.
I have 4 trades that I want to make, and I'll tell you why, and how much capital we can add for each of them. The first one is Golden Tate. Obviously, we'll try to get a 7th-round conditional pick. At this point, he's really, teams are like, just cut him and we'll pick him up on waiver wire. But he's a guy that has experience. He can come in and help a winning team and get fueled by that motivation. I think he still has some juice left in the tank.
He had a great play last night, yeah.
Yeah, we saw it yesterday, 39. Actually, I think it was a 39-yard touchdown reception. So I think there's value there. They can extract a draft pick. Like, look at Tate Crowder. You don't know where you're going to land in the 7th round. You really don't. So you never know what's going to happen if you just take all those picks. Maybe you get lucky. And the Giants got lucky with Tate Crowder, even though he's injured right now. And there's more to be seen from him as well. But the second guy is Evan Ingram. After his game last night, I don't think that they're buying. I don't think any team's willing to offer more than a 4th rounder for him. And in this case, I'm taking it, because that's Tyler Biadasz, by the way. That's Tyler Biadasz in the 4th round as your center.
I still think you can get a 3rd for Ingram. And Matt Lombardo released a report today saying that the value is still high on Ingram. Matt Lombardo said he's spoken to NFL executives, like GMs around the league, and he said the value is still high on Ingram. There are teams around the league that value him because they know that they can take his talent and mold it in a way that makes him a long-term answer at tight end. They can make him a star. I said this to actually my roommate the other day. I was like, if they trade Evan Ingram to a team that knows how to use him, he'll become a top 5 tight end in the NFL. I think that. I think maybe he's got to get some things fixed. Like, you can't blame Jason Garrett for the fact that he dropped that pass. That is on Evan Ingram.
Multiple
that was terrible. Right. The drops are a problem, but maybe a better coaching staff could fix it, whatever. But I don't know. You just look at certain teams around the league and the way that they use their tight ends, and I feel like the way that we use the tight ends, just Evan Ingram does have that raw athletic ability, the raw talent. He just hasn't molded it, which is concerning because it's been so long that he's been in the league now and he hasn't molded it. But I just think the number one trade candidate you have is Evan Ingram because he can be so good if he goes elsewhere. So some team might recognize that and actually be willing to pay a somewhat of a premium to get him.
Right. Now, I think that I'm not going to turn down a 3rd-round pick. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to turn that down. But teams are looking at the Giants right now and saying they're vulnerable. They're trying to get rid of pieces right now. We can probably get some of their better players on a fire sale type of deal.
That's fair.
And that's why I think 4th-round pick is probably what's going to happen. If they get a 3rd, I will be over the moon because that's pretty decent value for a player who has offered nothing but 4 turnovers for the Giants. That's pretty much it, and losing a huge divisional game. So my 3rd one is Kevin Zeitler, who actually, after thinking about it, talking with a bunch of people, I think that they can gain back some essential value, maybe a 3rd-round pick they can get for him because, he's going to have a $14.5 million cap hit next year, but the reality is that he upgrades an essential position on the offensive line. The Chiefs are a team that could look to the Giants and say, hey, we'll give you our 3rd round pick for him because they are down a bunch of offensive linemen, and getting a guy like Kevin Zeitler would completely overhaul that unit, by the way. So I like that concept. I like the idea of getting a 3rd round pick or a 2nd rounder if we're football god lucky for Zeitler. My 4th one is Leonard Williams. We have to recoup some value from Dave Gettleman's trade for him a couple of years ago. And he's been awesome this year. Leonard Williams has been a stud this year. But so has BJ Hill. So has BJ Hill.
That's true.
So I'm sitting here like, BJ Hill's a very capable player. And if we're going to go and just tear it all down and gain some capital, I don't think the Giants are retaining Leonard Williams on a long-term deal because he's not doing enough to make this team a winning team. You know what I mean? He's not doing enough like Aaron Donald level, who's making like, I think, just about as much as him, a little bit more maybe, or less. I don't even know. If you want to look that up, Aaron Donald, how much he's making compared to Leonard Williams. But I think maybe they could get a 3rd round pick for Leonard Williams too. Maybe a 4th round pick. All of those combined, you get an extra 7th rounder, an extra, let's say, a 4th rounder, a 3rd rounder, and maybe another 3rd rounder. So that's 2 additional 3rd rounders, a 4th rounder, and a 7th rounder. I think that's a pretty decent haul. That's 4 picks you add. So now you have 9 picks next year. And you have a new GM who can come in and really overhaul this roster. And you get $14.5 million off your cap hit, $16 million off your cap hit, and Golden Tate. So I think it's going to save another $6 million because he has an opt out with the team. That's about $4.7 million in dead cap. Otherwise, it would be $10 million. So you're saving like upwards of $30 million, which you can allocate toward a very good pass rusher. You can draft another defensive tackle because we do that every single time, and it turns out pretty well for us. You can get a good pass rusher, and also Marcus Golden. Try and trade him as well. Throw him in the basket. So that gives us money.
I don't know if you're really going to get anything for Marcus Golden, though. I mean, here's the thing, though. I think Jabril Peppers should definitely be brought up. I mean, he's solid.
That's fair.
I just think any of these young guys that have that athletic ability that a team might be able to mold, that we for some reason can't mold, they're the ones that we should consider. I know we've mentioned Shepard a couple times as maybe a candidate. I don't think you can do that.
Not after yesterday.
I think you have to hold on to Shepard. He is essential for this offense, and he is a really solid player. He runs some of the best routes at any of these receivers in the league. Like, he is a great route runner. And I just think you got to stick with him because he still is young. And what's the hurt in having him become one of those veteran players down the road? Like, keep him around.
He's not that expensive. He's like $10 million a year. That's not bad.
Right. It's not. He's on a good contract. It's a good contract, and it's one that you want to hold on to. A Golden Tate's contract, however,
bad one.
Now that's one you want to get rid of.
Bad.
Yeah.
Yep. No, you're 100% right. And now I'm looking into the future right now. You have Darius Slayton, you got Saquon back, you have Sterling Shepard, and they add another guy in the draft, maybe a 2nd round pick allocated to the position. You have a pretty decent arsenal of weapons there. And then you have Caden Smith. Maybe they draft a tight end in the mid rounds, or they go out and like trade for David Njoku or something. I don't know. They probably get cut if they don't find a trade partner for him. Anyway, I think that this offense has some better weapons for Daniel Jones next year as long as they can stay healthy. The offensive line, again, is just still like Dave Gettleman promised, man. He said, we're going to solve this offensive line once and for all. That was like one of the main things he said this year.
One thing I'll throw out there as a positive, I think Nick Gates played a lot better last night. I think we definitely saw some improvement and some progress in Nick Gates. I remember last night I did see like one specific really good run block that he had where he completely turned Fletcher Cox out of the way and opened up a hole. And I was like, okay, I haven't really seen him do that in a few weeks, so that looked good. You know, that was you're definitely seeing progress there. I still think Will Hernandez is not the answer left guard. I do still believe Andrew Thomas is the answer at offensive tackle. I don't know which side, but eventually I think he gets these things fixed, and I think he works out at offensive tackle. But I just want to see Matt Peart play, and I want to see Shane Lemieux play. I want to see these young guys play and see if we do have an offensive line of the future that we can plan for, or if we need to prioritize it in the draft again next year. You know, we got to figure that stuff out.
Again. Well, look, Nick Gates had his best game of the year against Philly on Thursday night.
That makes sense.
62.7 overall grade, which isn't great, but his pass blocking was 84.1, which was elite. It was just his run blocking that brought them down, and they only had 21 run blocking snaps, which is the lowest it's been since week 3. The Giants barely ran the ball last night until the end when Wayne Gallman was like steamrolling people. So I really like to see this. I know he did look great, but I really like to see this with Nick Gates. He's improved almost weekly. And this was his best game against a pretty solid pass rush for the Eagles. So I'm pretty confident that he's going to keep developing. I think he might actually end up being the future at center if he keeps on this path. But you have Andrew Thomas at left tackle, who is basically a turnstile. Then you have Cam Fleming, who's going to be gone after this year. But it's going to happen. Andrew Thomas, though, yesterday had a 32.5 pass blocking grade. His run blocking was great. It was in the 70s, which is much better than you would have expected. But pass blocking, 32.5. That was the second worst it's been all season, and he's been bad every game. So that has to improve at some point. He's getting beat inside. It's cardinal sin for you to get beat inside as an offensive tackle. I think that they need to be sprinkling Matt Peart at left and right tackle more consistently because they need to get more film and more reps to see if he can be a solution at either of those spots. He only had 6 reps there. So what are you going to gain from barely one series at right tackle? You're not going to gain much. And we know Cam Fleming is in the future. Maybe they re-sign him to another 1-year deal as a depth player, but we'll see where that goes. And I think Will Hernandez was decent. He had that one late penalty that was questionable. Obviously, we talked about Kevin Zeitler, but this line still has a lot of questions, man. I mean, if the Giants end up, they're probably not making the playoffs after this. So if they do end up with the top 5 pick, Penei Sewell is very much in the question. I don't think they go that route because they can't justify taking another offensive tackle.
I definitely think you could justify it. I think I think it's the same argument. I think it's the same argument with the Trevor Lawrence thing. You don't want to take quarterbacks 2 times in 3 years, but the generational quarterback is there. The generational offensive tackle is there. So you figure out where you put Andrew Thomas. You figure out wherever. But you get Penei Sewell and you lock in one of those offensive tackle positions for 10 years. Like if everybody is right and he is a generational talent at offensive tackle, like people want to say, you get him. You don't pass on that. But then you know what? You look around this roster and you look around this team. Maybe one of those generational wide receivers wouldn't be a bad idea either. Think about this offense. Because last night what I saw honestly one of the best games of Daniel Jones' career. And I'll explain that. I think that he answered 2 really big questions last night. And I think if we won that game, the narrative would be completely different. We would be calling that Daniel Jones coming of age game. That's what that was. That was him taking that next step. No one's going to remember it that way, though, because we lost because of all the reasons we've laid out. But with this wide receiver thing that I'm talking about, so you see Slayton have these games where he's a complete monster. Then he has a game where he's okay. Then he disappears for a while, and then he comes back and he's a monster again. That's because he is a number 2 receiver, like a prototypical number 2 receiver. He is exactly what you want out of your secondary wide receiver. You don't have that number 1 receiver on this team, though, that guy that commands double teams and that opens up the rest of the offense. If you get a guy like Jamar Chase to just step in there and be that player, on that 3rd down, you're not targeting Evan Ingram. You're targeting Jamar Chase. And if Jamar Chase isn't open, Slayton probably is because he's that good as a second receiver. And it's like the pecking order just is so much better because you're going from superstar receiver who's probably open even if they're game planning to stop him, and then if he's not, that other really good receiver probably is open because they're not game planning to stop him because they're devoting their attention on the superstar. So that number 1 receiver would actually provide so much for this offense. And now I want to talk about the Daniel Jones thing. From Daniel Jones, there's been a problem that I've been saying for the past few weeks. He keeps putting together these amazing, super long drives and then blowing them. Week 1, that 19-play drive where he stood in the pocket for 3 or 4 3rd and 4th down conversions, delivered amazing throws. Throw after throw was perfect, got them all the way inside the 10-yard line, threw the worst interception he's probably thrown in his career. It was terrible. And then the Rams, final drive of the game, gets them down the field, looks decisive, throws one of the best throws of his career to Slayton on a deep dig route for a 33-yard gain. Throws a pick 3 or 4 plays later. Gets down in the red zone, throws a pick. He did it against Dallas, I think, as well. He's just done that a few times. He'll put together these really long drives and then blow them. They just don't finish. Last night, when he started putting together that really long drive, I said, okay, if he can finish this drive, I'm going to start to believe in him even more. I need to see him finish this drive. He can't throw a pick. I said it. I was like, this is one of those moments where he throws one of those heartbreaking picks, isn't it? If he doesn't, though, it shows the progress. He gets down there, throws a touchdown pass to Shepard, completes the drive. So he answers that question. That's solved, right? He's figured that out. And then the second thing, When we were in that last drive, I was like, okay, all we got to do is run the ball. But when it gets down to third down and Daniel Jones has to make a throw, he has to deliver. He has to make this throw.
He
Third
did.
and 6, he delivers. He throws a dime 20 yards down the left sideline. Perfect throw right in the receiver's hands. Evan Ingram drops it. But he delivered. If you take that and you take away just Daniel Jones from this game and you look at the test of Daniel Jones, he passed every question on the test. He passed the clutch throws in the fourth quarter. He made a big-time dime to Golden Tate early in the game, and he put together one of those long drives that only a franchise quarterback can do. Backup quarterbacks can't do that. You have to be a legitimate starting quarterback in the league to put together a long drive like that. He hasn't done it yet, and now he has. So he passed this test, and it looked like he came of age. He even showed that he's got the wheels. He's decisive. He didn't the final play, the fumble. Okay, that was kind of bad.
That was like an interception when you're trying to make something happen.
Exactly. That was like he had tunnel vision because he knew he had to whip the ball downfield. It's really hard to fault him for that, right? And then the interception flew right off of Evan Ingram's hand, so you can't fault him for that. It was a good throw. It was the right read. I didn't like the play call, but he made the right throw. So you look at all of this, and you look at him pass all of these tests last night, and you won't remember it. You will just remember he stumbled on the way to the end zone, and he fell. And you just take that play away, and you look at it, and it's an amazing play. You can literally build an offensive scheme around a play like that.
Oh yeah, even so. When's the last time we've seen a Giants quarterback run for 80 yards on
Never in our life.
I mean, longest.
Yeah,
it was the longest in their history.
Yeah.
You know, so
longer than any Saquon Barkley rush ever.
Yeah.
Mind you that.
Yeah. There you go. So I want to go back to your Jamar Chase and generational wide receiver thing as well. Just to touch on that. If you get a player like Jamar Chase and you get Saquon back and you have Shepard and Slayton, it masks some of your offensive line issues. By the way. Because you can depend on your wide receivers.
It's the Plaxico Burress thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, because you can just throw it up and he'll freaking catch it.
It's not even that. Remember that Giants offense, 2008 season, after the Super Bowl, right? Mm-hmm. We were 11-1, 10-1, right? I think we were 10-1. We finished 11-5 after Plaxico Burress shot his leg. The offense could not do anything. And if you ever go read what Brandon Jacobs or any of those other guys that were on that team had to say about it, they said that the way they ran their offense with Plaxico in and Plaxico out was completely different. They could not do any of the same things. They could not run the same scheme. They had to completely change their playbook once they were missing that star receiver because he commanded these double teams. He opened up the running game, and then once he was gone, they didn't know what to do. They could not spread the field. They couldn't throw the ball. They couldn't run the ball. They were screwed. So you look at this team and all of their problems on offense, you plug in one of those Plaxico Burress. You plug in a Plaxico Burress, one of those star receivers, a Jamar Chase, like an Odell Beckham, say he was on this team. All of those problems that we have start opening up because of the time and energy that the defenses have to devote to that one receiver. And that's the Plaxico Burress conundrum, whatever you want to call it. That's what I'm talking about.
Would you say that Jamar Chase has a higher ceiling than OBJ?
Higher ceiling? I think when OBJ came in the league, he had the highest ceiling of any receiver. He looked like he was on pace, and you can say a lot of this was Eli Manning, for whatever. He was on pace to break like every wide receiver record and to be the greatest receiver of all time. That's what he was pacing for in his first 3 years, not just his first year. His first 3 years, he was dominant like that. His first 2 at least. I think he got hurt in his third. Right? No, that's when they went to the playoffs. He was amazing in his third. He missed
like 4 games in his rookie season and still was almost breaking records.
I know. So the ceiling, I don't know, because Odell's ceiling was really high. But the floor, when Odell was coming out of college, that was a little bit of a questionable pick at 12. He was projected to go in the 20s. So, I'll say the floor is definitely higher for Jamar Chase. I think he steps in and he's instantly good.
Right. That's reasonable. I think, the Giants really can't miss with this pick. I don't want to say that because Andrew
You can always miss.
You can always miss, but look, there are a few generational talents in this draft. Andrew Thomas was never a generational talent, right? Nobody called him that. Nobody.
I don't think so.
And if you did, then I don't know what you were looking at because he had his flaws.
He had his flaws. He was really good, though. He was.
He was very good. He was very good, but we said he has the highest floor. No one ever said he is a generational talent that you cannot miss on. You cannot miss.
He was the high floor prospect.
People had him ranked as their 4th OT on the board behind Mekhi Becton, even Jedrick Wills and Tristan Wirfs. And Wirfs, all of them are playing better than him right now, despite Becton kind of missing a few games the last few weeks with the Jets. But, Andrew Thomas has plenty of time to right his wrongs and develop, so I'm confident that he will get better over time. I think that they know what's wrong with him. It's just lack of reps. The muscle memory isn't there. The stuff that he will have to work on during the offseason to correct, because it's hard to do when you're trying to game plan and eradicate some of these problems at the same time on a week-by-week basis. It's just not easy. So I think next offseason will be a big transitional one for him, and understanding what his weaknesses are and fixing them and really building that muscle memory during the offseason. I think we'll see a big difference from year 1 to year 2 with him. But with that being said, there are a few generational talents. Micah Parsons. That's another guy.
Your defense gets really nasty with him in there.
Here's what I do think. I think that we saw this year two things, and actually Jason Garrett's play calling was pretty motivating yesterday, I must say. And with that being said, it was better. It was better than it was. So I think that we're seeing progress there, which is very, very encouraging because, my God, the first 6 weeks were depressing. So I think that the Giants take a similar approach to what they did this past offseason. They use free agency for the defense, and they use the draft for the offense. I think they go with an offensive player to maybe a wide receiver or a tackle. We'll see what happens there, to inject more talent into this offense because they need it more than the defense. And, you trade away. Let's assume that Leonard Williams isn't on the team anymore. They take all this money that they're going to get from Golden Tate and Leonard Williams and Kevin Zeitler if these guys get traded, and they're going to go out and sign another player, like some big names, maybe one or two big names, a pass rusher, and let's say you don't have to get a big name as your second linebacker, but a decent cover linebacker and
draft a cornerback,
a CB2, and a second cornerback.
Sign a cornerback,
and you're getting Xavier McKinney back. We have a lot of talent there. 2 signings, 3 signings, 1 big signing, and 2 minor, like CB2 and linebacker 2 signings. That goes a long way. That'll be huge for the Giants. They already have some depth with David Mayo at linebacker. Now the offense, you look at it and you're saying, okay, we need more talent at several positions here. One of them being tackle. We're going to hope to God that Andrew Thomas and Matt Parrott pan out, and we need to adjust the wide receiver position, whether it's Jamar Chase or it is Allen Robinson. But either way, you just have to hope that your guys stay healthy. That's been the Giants' pain through the first 7 weeks. Saquon's out with an ACL tear. They couldn't really get him going. They couldn't develop him into their scheme. Sterling Shepard just played his 3rd game, basically, yesterday. And Darius Slayton, like you said, to number 2, he disappears sometimes, and Evan Ingram just simply can't be relied on. So what do you do? What do you do? Devonta Freeman was also injured. He injured his ankle. He was questionable to return.
Yeah, he got hurt. So
I think that the draft goes toward the offense, and I think free agency is more tailored toward the defense, because what they did in free agency this year with the D was outstanding with Blake Martinez and James Bradbury. I think they stick on that path because I think Patrick Graham knows. I don't think this was all Dave Gettleman's decision. I think he worked in, synergy was very good when they were deciding on these players. I think Patrick Graham knows who fits into his system and his scheme. And I think that he did a phenomenal job targeting these guys and getting it done with the management. So I like where they're headed with the defense. I think they are very capable of being a top 5, top 10 unit on a yearly basis over the next couple seasons. So with that being said, I want to see them take the same approach in free agency next year toward the defense, and then use the draft to bolster the offense, because you got to pick and choose right now, and it seems like we need more youth on the offense because veterans like Golden Tate, who just aren't hungry anymore, just aren't going to get the job done.
Yeah, and I'll also say, because you're mentioning players that fit into Patrick Graham's scheme, right? A player that I thought maybe wasn't a scheme fit anymore, and I was starting to get concerned about, was Julian Love, because he got benched. He played a lot better last night. He played really well last night. I even just went and checked his PFF grading. He had a 75.8 overall grade, an 84.8 tackling grade. He had an 82.8 tackling grade the week prior, so his tackling has really shored up, and he's looked a lot better.
His best coverage.
I'm happy to see. And I think some fans might be getting sick of us riding this Julian Love gravy train, but dude, I just think if you mold him right, he could be one of those long-term pieces. So hopefully we're right about that. And then
he played
in
his
terms,
best game.
Yeah, no, he played great last night. And then in terms of the way that they're building this team, I'm not confident that they go the same route that they just did, just because did it work? You could say the defense looks a lot better. The defense is fixed. The
It
defense is
does.
solid. It is a good unit. You know,
He
like
has
we have a
two
good defensive
undrafted free
unit.
agents back there gaining reps.
Right.
Madre Harper.
Right.
You know, we have Corey Ballantyne starting this year, the
Right.
season. Then you have
Ryan Lewis is a starter. Right.
Imagine we had Ross Cockrell there. That's a game changer.
Right. I agree. But the thing is, I think it's too soon to predict what they do in the offseason simply because Dave Gettleman, he's not going to be here. He's gone. So whoever comes in might have a totally different philosophy, and he might go totally different route. And that's just something we're going to have to wait and see about. But me personally, I do think that if the season ended today and we had this top 5 pick or whatever, the way that I'm leaning, I think I'm leaning towards, offensive tackle. Honestly, I think I do think that Penei Sewell is too good to pass up on in that situation.
So so let's, theoretically speaking, the Giants pick Penei Sewell. What is his offensive line looking like?
The biggest question mark to me on this offensive line is Will Hernandez. What do you do with him? Because I've seen enough of him. He's not the answer. He's not a starting guard to me. I don't know. So, maybe he is, but he's not a good starting guard. You can keep him out there, but you're going to be looking to replace him. Because how long are you going to give the guy until you, how much time does he need to grow before you say, okay, he's just never going to get there, He's been growing, he's been having growing pains every year. Eventually, he's going to just stop growing. And has he stopped growing? It kind of looks like he has. It doesn't look like these are growing pains anymore. This just looks like he is what he is. And that's the problem, because then, it's easy to say, okay, you move Andrew Thomas to right tackle, Sewell to left tackle, and then you slide Lemieux into guard, or you keep the other way so that Lemieux and Sewell play on the right side together, right? But then you still look at left guard, and you still have this big question mark there, okay, what do we do with Will Hernandez? He's still on his rookie contract, so we might as well keep him, but do we look to replace him too? Do we really need to draft 3 starters on the offensive line in one offseason? Is Nick Gates the answer? Nick Gates hasn't really looked like the answer, even though he's improving. There's not a quick fix for this offensive line. As bad as people want there to be, there just isn't a quick fix. As much as I would love to have this thing fixed overnight, it's not going to happen. It's going to take probably 5 years until we have a good offensive line. And that is a realistic expectation. It might take 3 to 5 years until we have a solid offensive line. Because with the growing pains thing, right? Andrew Thomas is having those growing pains. Let's see when he stops growing. It might take him some time to come to fruition and become a solid player. And that's fine. We can wait on him a year or two. Same thing if we had Sewell. He's a generational talent. Maybe he steps in and struggles his rookie year. His second year, he's an all-pro, Maybe we land the guard. Maybe Lemieux becomes one of those great players. I know Matt G thinks he's going to be a freaking beast, so maybe he is, maybe he's not. Realistically, it's probably going to be another 3 to 5 years until we have our offensive line figured out. And so it's unfortunate that that's the truth, because it's going to cost Dave Gettleman his job because he doesn't have enough time to put an offensive line together like that. But listen, it's just going to be about the way that they prioritize positions. Positional value with the next GM is going to be a huge thing. You can't waste those top picks on running backs and stuff, tight ends. Yeah. Even a first-round pick on a tight end.
We've learned the lesson the hard way. We really have.
We've learned our lessons, and the next guy who comes in is going to have to be better with positional value, and he's going to have to actually find some mid-round players that stick around. We can't keep having this roster turnover year to year. We need some continuity.
Right. No, you're right. And I think if they go the Penei Sewell route, I think this is what the offensive line looks like. I think it goes Penei Sewell. I think it's Shane Lemieux at left guard because they already have continuity at Oregon. I actually really like that combo. They are mean. Those two guys are bulldozers in the trenches. Yes. I think you keep Nick Gates because he fits that mold as well. He's a hog molly. I think he plays better with some anger, with some feistiness around him. And Will Hernandez has it. He just doesn't look like he's very refined in his abilities. Right guard, I think that you can go a few ways here. Either you keep Zeitler, which, would look great if you were to take Sewell. It would look phenomenal. If you get rid of him, you could put Peart there. You could sign somebody else, which is probably what they would do, probably a cheaper contract. And then you put Andrew Thomas at right tackle, and then you have Matt Peart play reserve. You have to have depth at the offensive line position these days. You never know when a guy's going to go down. It's really, really good to have a guy that can play left and right tackle, and you can feel like, okay, he's not the worst. He's average. In best case scenario, Parrott ends up being really, really good, and suddenly like they're like, oh, we could trade him for a second round pick. And then you just you could add value. I don't want to do that. I'm just saying. But with that being said, that line looks a lot better than it does now. The one that I just laid out. But at the same time, I could see why justifying Jamar Chase makes sense. But again, this is a really deep wide receiver class. It's a really deep wide receiver class. So taking Jamar Chase
someone
is
in round 2 if you want.
Too. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Round 2, there's probably going to be a ton of really, really good options. Think about Chase Claypool. He's killing it right now, and he hasn't dropped a pass yet.
What round was he in? Was he round 4?
Third round.
3 or 4? Third round.
I think it was the third round. Yeah.
I had a second round grade on him when I did my scouting.
Yeah, we all did. So. Remember, we were talking all about him before. I wrote many articles, many articles.
I like
about
him a lot.
So
he's a beast.
Right, and this next class, you can't disregard that. There's a lot of really, really good players available. So I don't think drafting Jamar Chase would be the ideal move. I think you wait until the second round and you get a guy there. There's going to be plenty of options. And, the first round pick, you go Micah Parsons or you go Penei Sewell. And I think you nail it with either of those guys. You put Blake Martinez and Micah Parsons together and you have one of the best linebacker duos in the NFL immediately. And you don't even know what those two guys are capable of together. They're elite.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know what, though? I'll just say it kind of sucks that we're having these conversations right now. I wish that we won last night and we were having conversations about this playoff race. Mm-hmm. But now we're just not talking about
It's terrible. That. It's terrible, man. Every
it's
single
really depressing.
Week, we end up talking about the draft because that's the only happiness and excitement that I can actually find. That's it.
I'm excited every week to watch the Giants play, and then I'm continuously let down. We're going to play next Monday night. We're going to play Tampa. And Brady and the Bucs are on a tear right now, and they're going to tear us a new one.
Yeah,
and it's going to be scary.
Yeah, they're probably going to crap on us, and the reality is like I expected it. That's why we needed to win this game, go into the bye week, rest up, and come back strong.
This was a must-win game for the Giants because this would have put them in tied for first, and then after that you play Tampa. You probably drop that game. Go through the bye, and then you got 2 more divisional games to literally cement yourself at the top of the division. You can do that in those 2 games. So, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Now it just seems like it's too tall of a hill to climb at this point.
It really does. Unless the Giants beat Dallas and the Eagles and Washington 3 in a row, just completely. But even then, you're still only going to have 4 wins.
That's 4 wins. And
that's really bad.
I guess, there's still a path somewhere out there. I'm sure there is. Assuming we lose to the Bucs, then you come out of the bye, you beat Washington and you beat Philly. Those 2 divisional wins are actually going to do a lot for you because that's probably going to – you'll probably be 1 game back in the division at that point. And then if you beat Cincinnati and you somehow – the Browns game gets close, if you beat the Browns, it's all going to come down to Week 17 versus Dallas. If you beat Dallas – I don't know. I guess the Giants maybe could still slip in at 6-10, but is that a good thing to slip in at 6-10? I don't know.
No, it's terrible. It's terrible.
It's bad. It's bad because you lose instantly, and then your draft pick is 10 picks lower than it should be.
Right, and I want to see the Giants win. I want to see the Giants win. But if we're just gonna win to have a bad, draft pick, it's the same concept with Chase Young. We lost out on Chase Young because for whatever reason Washington just happens to screw us at all times. Every time Washington screws us. I don't get it.
You know what though? That Washington win last year, that was big for Daniel Jones though. He had 5 touchdown passes, 0 turnovers.
Caden Smith, meanwhile, he's disappeared.
Yeah. Well, he's just not being worked into the offense properly, I think.
He's literally a Jason Witten reincarnated. I don't understand why they don't want to use him.
I just think there are so many problems with this team right now. And it is so sad. And I just don't know where they're going to go. That's how I feel right now.
Yeah.
I think step one is firing Dave Gettleman. We saw the Falcons do it. They fired their GM 2 weeks ago. I think the Giants should do that ASAP.
Texans did it too.
Texans as well. Giants should get on that. Hop on the train.
Yeah, hop on the GM fire. Look what the Falcons won. The game after
that's so typical. That always happens. Every time a team does that, they make some surprise fire. And the Texans did too. Like they always win. I know. They always win that next game. It's so funny.
I know. It's insane. Maybe it's like, oh, thank God that guy's gone. Maybe that's why. It's like, maybe we're kind of motivated now. But
possible.
Look, this was a more of a therapy episode than anything. If you guys have stuck around to the hour mark, but we're going through some tough times again, and I thought COVID was bad. This is really just this is just hitting it on the head, man. If we lost to like Tampa like this, I'm like, okay, I get it, but when it's Philly, man, it hurts even more. It just hurts so much more.
It just stings.
We move on. We hope for the best, and the worst part about it is that we have zero control over it. We're just hoping for other people to make decisions to hopefully save our emotions from more pain and sorrow. But we're in it together, my friends. We are here. We are in it, and we will continue to hopefully succeed down the road. And we will remember these days, and we will leave them behind us. But right now, it's the dog days, my friends. This is what separates the men from the boys, the diehards from the casual fans. These are the games. These are the years.
These are the moments.
We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Nonetheless,
I don't know if I'm gonna make it.
Yeah, me neither. I'm just saying that for effect, but I really don't know if I am going to make it. Last night I was like, man, I might just.
I'll just say though,
everything.
The positive I drew from last night, I came out of that game probably more confident in Daniel Jones than I have been since week 1. I am so confident in him right now, and I feel really good about the quarterback position. And I know a lot of people disagree, which is fine. You can disagree because we're losing, and you have every excuse to disagree. I just feel very confident in Daniel Jones right now, and I'm excited to see how he progresses by the end of the year because I've said it earlier, we got to know by the end of the season, and I think we're getting there. I think we're going to figure it out by the end of the year, whether or not he's the answer, and I think he's going to be.
I would concur, but thank you guys for sticking around with us for this therapy episode following the loss to Philadelphia. I hate saying those words.
Me too.
And we'll be back next week to recap the Tampa Bay game. Also, we did an awesome live stream before the game, which we had a ton of people listening and asking questions.
We had a lot of people come in, and that was a lot of fun. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Tune in again. That was a lot of fun.
Yep, and if you're watching Anthony and I's coverage on Twitter, we are killing it. We're doing as much as we possibly can, and we just want to build a community, have some fun, and really just work through these bad times together and enjoy the good ones because I think it's going to feel really good when it happens. So, guys, I hope you guys have an awesome weekend and an awesome next week leading up to the Tampa game, and we will catch you guys on the flip side.